My brother built his whole life on a secret that destroyed mine. He assumed he had buried it forever, 6 feet under, right along with our mother's memory. But he forgot one thing: I'm the one who holds the shovel. This is the story of how I used our family's darkest secret to orchestrate his very public ruin. He never saw it coming. To him, I was always the quiet, emotional, weak one. He never imagined my grief could harden into a weapon aimed right at the heart of the perfect life he'd built on lies. He was wrong, and that mistake cost him everything. It all started on a day that was already drowning in sorrow, the first anniversary of our mother's death. I went to lay flowers at her grave and found it desecrated, not by some random vandal, but by something so much more personal and chilling. The headstone was gone. Gone. It wasn't until much later that I found out he had sold it. For scrap. That was when I saw that the betrayal wasn't a crack in our family. It was a rot that had hollowed us out from within. And I was the only one who could cut it out. Before the sickness, before all the grief, we looked like a normal family. At least that's what the pictures on the mantelpiece said. Our home in the San Diego suburbs smelled like my mother's baking. It was always filled with my brother's laughter. My brother, Alex, to the outside world, he was the sun. Handsome, charismatic, he could sell you a dream by smiling. He was the golden child, the one destined for big things, and my mom adored him. I was the quiet one, the watcher. While Alex was out charming the world, I was usually inside with a book or helping mom in the garden. Our bond was quiet, built on shared moments and things we didn't need to say out loud. I knew how her eyes crinkled when she was amused. Alex, despite his loud "I love yous," rarely seemed to notice. His love felt like a performance, always loud, always public, always for an audience. Mine was a quiet, steady flame. Even when we were young, I saw hints of who Alex was. He had this sense of entitlement, like the world owed him its best. I remember one time when he was a teenager, he borrowed our dad's vintage watch without asking. When Dad got upset, Alex didn't apologize. He scoffed. "What's the big deal? I look better in it anyway. It's sitting in your drawer." He never saw the sentimental value, only what it was worth. It was a pattern that kept repeating, over and over, with higher and higher stakes. When Mom got sick, that mask became his uniform. He flew into action, playing the part of the devoted son perfectly. He spoke with the doctors. He handled her appointments. He informed everyone in a serious, responsible tone. He was magnificent. Everyone said so. "Aaron, you are so lucky to have Alex," my aunt would say. "He's handling everything with such strength." But I was there. I was there in the quiet hours, long after Alex made his dutiful appearance and left to handle business. I was the one holding Mom's hand when she was too weak to talk. I learned to read the pain in her eyes, and I saw how Alex's presence, for all its supposed comfort, stressed her out. He'd take loud work calls in her hospital room. He'd mention her treatment costs, making sure she could hear him. He framed it as his big sacrifice. He was so concerned with the optics of being a good son that he forgot to be one. He saw her illness as an obstacle and inconvenience. I saw it as a thief, stealing the person I loved most in the world. We were living in 2 different realities. I was so drowned in my sorrow that I didn't see how deep his selfishness went. I thought he was distant, coping in his way. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. That was my first mistake. It allowed the rot to fester, unchecked, until it was almost too late. The day we buried our mother, the sky over San Diego was a flat, unforgiving gray. I remember feeling numb, like I was watching a movie of the worst day of my life. Alex, of course, was in his element. He organized everything: the funeral home, the service, the eulogy. He spoke with a voice full of practiced emotion about a woman I barely knew. His version of Mom was a flawless saint whose greatest achievement was raising him. He made her death about him. Even then, a small, angry part of me noticed. But grief is a powerful sedative. It dulls the sharp edges of anger and leaves an ache. I let him handle it all. The bills, the paperwork. He promised he'd chosen the best of everything for her. A beautiful oak casket, a serene plot, and a tasteful granite headstone. "Only the best for Mom," he'd said, clapping my shoulder. I believed him. A year went by, a year of firsts without her. Each one was a fresh wave of grief. When the anniversary of her death came, I needed to feel close to her. I bought a bouquet of her favorite flowers, white lilies and lavender, and drove to the cemetery. The sun was warm, but a chill went right through me as I walked toward her grave. I knew the way by heart. Section C, row 12, plot 4. I could see the spot from a distance, but as I got closer, I felt a prickle of confusion. Something was wrong. I stopped and stared. The plot was there, the grass was green, but the headstone, it was gone, not broken, vanished. The ground looked disturbed, like something yanked itself right out of the earth. For a second, my mind couldn't accept it. I thought I had to be in the wrong place. I searched the little metal marker in the grass with urgency. C12-4. This was it. This was her final resting place, and it was bare. Panic, cold and sharp, cut right through my grief. I stumbled back. My first thought was vandalism. I ran to the administration office near the entrance, my heart hammering. George, the kind-faced groundskeeper, looked up. Concern crossed his face when he saw my state. "Her headstone," I gasped. "My mother's headstone, it's gone." He was patient and calming. He pulled up the records on his computer. "Blake, plot C12-4. Yes, I have it here. Let me check the work orders." He typed for a moment, his brow furrowed. "That's odd," he murmured. "There's no work order for a removal. Let me come have a look." He walked back with me, confirming my horror. The stone was missing. "I don't understand," he said, shaking his head. "This shouldn't happen. To remove something this size, you'd need equipment. Someone would have to allow it." He promised to check the security footage and call me. I left in a daze, the lilies still clutched in my hand. My mind was racing. Who would do this? And then a more terrifying question: who could allow it? Besides me, there was only one person. I drove straight to Alex's sleek, minimalist apartment downtown. He was in the middle of a conference call, pacing with his Bluetooth headset on. He waved me off impatiently, but I stood there, my hands shaking. When he finally hung up, he sighed. "Aaron, I'm busy. What is it?" "The headstone," I whispered. "Mom's headstone, it's gone." He didn't look shocked. He didn't even look surprised. He looked annoyed. He let out this long-suffering sigh. "Oh, that," he said with a wave of his hand, indicating his lack of interest. "I was going to tell you." I stared at him. "Tell me, what are you talking about, Alex?" "It was a temporary one, Aaron," he said, turning his back to me to fuss with his espresso machine. "A basic placeholder. I'm having a much better one made. Imported Italian marble. It's on backorder. You're being quite dramatic." The lie was so smooth. For a split second, I almost bought it. It was easier than believing the alternative. But his casualness, his total lack of empathy for the shock I'd had, it felt wrong, deeply wrong. "A temporary one?" I asked, my voice getting a little stronger. "It looked pretty permanent, Alex. It was granite. You showed me the design." He turned around, a flash of irritation in his eyes before he replaced it with pity. "Your memory is fuzzy, Aaron. You were a mess back then. You weren't thinking clearly. I handled it. It was a temporary stone. Now, can we please drop this? I have another call." He turned his back on me again, dismissing me. I stood in his cold apartment, staring at the brother I thought I knew. He had an answer for everything. But his answers no longer felt true. They felt like walls. For the first time, I needed to see what was behind them. I left Alex's apartment with his lie hanging in the air. "It was temporary. You were a mess." He designed his words to make me question myself, and for a few days they worked. He was right. Grief does strange things to your mind. But I couldn't shake the image of that empty plot of grass. His story was too neat, and his reaction was too cold. This was the same man who had cried so convincingly at the funeral, and now he couldn't muster an ounce of sympathy. It didn't add up. A new feeling started to push through my grief: suspicion. It was a cold, hard knot in my stomach telling me I was being played. So I decided to do something I had never done. I decided to stop trusting my brother. My investigation started with a phone call to Evergreen Memorials, the company Alex said he'd used. My hands were shaking as I dialed. I told the receptionist I was here to check on a new headstone for my mother, Eleanor Blake. She put me on hold. After a few minutes, she returned, polite but firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the account holder is Mr. Alex Blake. We can't share information with third parties without his permission." Of course, Alex was meticulous. He'd have made sure he was the only point of contact. I hung up, frustrated but not defeated. Innocent people don't build fortresses around their actions. Next, I went to the funeral home itself, Pacific View Mortuary. I walked in, my heart pounding. The funeral director who handled Mom's service, Mr. Henderson, had retired. Another dead end, or so I thought. While I waited to talk to the new manager, a young woman in her mid-20s stepped out of a back office. She heard me say my mother's name. Her eyes flickered. "Eleanor Blake?" she asked softly. "I remember your family. I was an intern back then. I helped Mr. Henderson with the arrangements. I'm Sarah." An opening, I told her everything. The missing headstone, my brother's bizarre story. I kept my voice low, a confused and grieving daughter trying to understand. She listened, her expression sympathetic. "That does sound strange," she admitted. "We don't do temporary granite headstones. That's not a thing." My heart leaped. It was the first proof I wasn't crazy. "I wish I could help," Sarah said, glancing nervously toward the manager's office. "But the primary files are sealed once an account is closed." She hesitated, but she didn't walk away. "Look," she whispered, "I can't access the main file, but the payment ledgers are separate. For accounting, I could look up the payment history. That's numbers." I nodded, trying to hide my excitement. "Thank you." She disappeared. It felt like an eternity. When she came back, she was holding a single printed sheet. She laid it on a table nearby, keeping her back to the security camera. "It's funny," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I see the initial charge for the comprehensive package, including the Heritage Model Granite Headstone, paid in full, but then there's another entry about a week after the funeral." She tapped a line on the paper. "It's a refund for the full price of the headstone, marked client cancellation. And the refund was issued to a personal credit card, not the estate account." She looked right at me, her kind eyes now filled with horror. "It was authorized and signed for by Alex Blake." The air left my lungs. Client cancellation, refund. He hadn't ordered a better one. He had gone back, after Mom was in the ground, and canceled her headstone. He took the money. He had looked at our mother's grave and seen a business opportunity. The man who called me dramatic had sold his own mother's memorial for cash. The grief I'd been carrying was suddenly consumed by pure, white-hot rage. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a desecration. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my core, this was the first thread. If I kept pulling, his entire world was going to unravel. The headstone refund was a key to a door I never knew existed. My brother wasn't disrespectful, he was a thief. But why? Alex had a good job in finance. He wasn't hurting for a few $1,000s, or was he? His whole life suddenly seemed suspicious. The expensive apartment, the new German sports car, the pricey watches. He always said his investments were paying off. Now, that story seemed paper-thin. The headstone was a clue. I called Sarah a few days later, my voice steady now with grim purpose. I told her what she'd shown me raised even more questions. I asked if there was any way to see records from the old director, Mr. Henderson. I told her I suspected my brother wasn't the only one involved. She was hesitant. This was risky for her. "There might be something," she said cautiously. "Mr. Henderson was old school. He kept a private ledger. For cash payments, we made special arrangements. This included transactions not on the official books. His old desk is still in storage in the basement." A private ledger. My blood ran cold. This was it. The next afternoon, Sarah led me down to a dusty basement storage room. In the corner was an old oak desk. We managed to jimmy the lock on the top drawer, and there it was, a simple, leather-bound book. I opened it. The pages were filled with spidery handwriting. I flipped to a section at the back, dated over the last 3 years. The heading was one chilling word: removals. Below it was a list of names, the names of the dead. Beside each name was a date, a dollar amount, and an initial, AB my brother, Alex Blake. I felt sick. There were dozens of names. My mother's name was there, dated 2 days after her funeral. Beside it, 5,000, and the initials AB. The payments ranged from a few thousand to $10,000, all initialed by my brother. Sarah and I looked at each other. "What are removals?" I whispered, but I already knew. Her face was pale. "Sometimes," she said, her voice shaking, "a family pays for a high-end casket, solid mahogany. But before the cremation, a cheaper one, a pine box, is substituted. The expensive casket is removed and can be resold. The family never knows, they're grieving, they don't check." The scale of it was monstrous. This was a systematic, ghoulish operation. Alex and the funeral director preyed on many families when they were at their lowest. They sold people's dignity for their loved ones. Then, they secretly traded it for cheap materials and kept the extra money. Alex's success wasn't from the stock market, it was from grave robbing. Every fancy dinner, every expensive gift was funded by this. My mother wasn't his only victim, she was the one who got him caught. Standing in that basement, the ledger felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My rage was still there, but now it was cold and focused. This was bigger than my family. It was about every name in that book. I knew I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. A dusty, unofficial ledger against a charismatic man like Alex? His lawyers would paint me as a hysterical sister and Sarah as a disgruntled employee. No, for justice to be served, the truth couldn't come out. It had to explode. Alex built his entire identity on his public image. I would destroy him in the same arena. I took out my phone and photographed every page of that ledger. Each name, each date, each stolen dollar. This was my evidence. This was my ammunition. My mourning was over. My war was beginning. For the next 2 months, I lived a double life. In public, I was quiet, grieving Aaron. In private, I was a strategist. I spent my nights online, cross-referencing the names from the ledger with obituaries. I put faces and stories to the names: a retired schoolteacher, a young couple who buried their infant son, and a decorated war veteran. Each story hardened my resolve. I carefully chose 3 other local families who had been cheated and reached out to them. I showed them the evidence. I saw my shock and horror mirrored in their eyes, followed by the same cold fury. They agreed to stand with me. My single voice was now a chorus. The perfect stage presented itself. An announcement in the San Diego Business Journal. Alex was being honored at the Chamber of Commerce Visionary Leaders Gala. He was receiving the Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year award. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. It was perfect. The night of the gala was surreal. I got a ticket through one of the other victims. I wore a simple black dress. I wanted to look credible and solemn, not like a woman seeking revenge, but like one delivering a verdict. In my purse were 4 sealed envelopes, each with copies of the ledger pages. I watched from the back as Alex sat at the head table, soaking in the adoration. When they called his name, the introduction was bright. It used words like integrity and innovation. The applause was deafening. He walked to the podium. He gave a speech about honoring our late mother. He said she was his inspiration. "She taught me the value of integrity," he said, his voice catching. "I hope I'm making her proud." That was it. He dared to use her memory to sanctify his crimes. I waited for the applause to peak. Then I walked calmly up the central aisle. The room quieted as people noticed. The confused spotlight found me. I reached the stage, standing a few feet from my brother. His smile was frozen on his face. My voice, though not loud, was clear in the dead silence. "My name is Aaron Blake," I began. "Alex Blake is my brother, and I am so glad he mentioned our mother tonight, because I am here to discuss how he has honored her memory." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Alex's face had gone white. "Aaron, what are you doing?" he hissed. I ignored him, my eyes scanning the room. My brother is being honored for his business success, but what this award fails to mention is the source of his seed capital. He says it came from smart investments. I discovered the truth. It came from our mother's grave. The silence was absolute. "A year after our mother died," I said, keeping my voice steady, "Alex had her headstone taken away and kept the refund. When I confronted him, he called me unstable. That was his first mistake. His second was thinking I would believe him. I told them everything. I stayed calm and factual. I mentioned the funeral home, the retired director, and the secret ledger. I held up a copy of one page. "This," I said, my voice ringing with authority, "is from a ledger detailing a 3-year scheme. It's called removals." He charged grieving families for premium caskets. Then he swapped them for cheap pine boxes. He pocketed tens of thousands of dollars. He built his success by exploiting the bereaved. I looked directly at Alex. He was staring at me, his eyes full of terror and pure hatred. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "The families of Mr. David Chen, Mrs. Maria Flores, and Sergeant Michael Rodriguez are here tonight," I said, pointing to my allies. We have the proof. I walked to the head table. I set the envelopes in front of the surprised Chamber of Commerce president and 2 journalists. My brother didn't break my heart, I said, my voice finally cracking with the emotion I had held back. He defiled the memory of my mother and countless others. He is not an entrepreneur. He is a predator, and he does not deserve your award. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. The eruption of chaos behind me was all the confirmation I needed. My brother's perfect world was shattering into a million pieces. The immediate aftermath was a blur. As I walked out, the press descended on me. My allies quickly formed a circle around me and guided me out of the ballroom. Behind us, the gala had completely imploded. I heard later that the award was formally rescinded on the spot. Alex was escorted out a side door, avoiding the cameras but not the public execution. The next morning, it was everywhere. The front page of the San Diego Union Tribune read, "Gala ends in scandal, honoree accused of defrauding grieving families." The local news played clips of my speech on a loop. My phone blew up with calls from horrified family members. Our family, already fractured, was now irrevocably broken. The official fallout was swift. The DA's office opened a criminal fraud investigation. More families came forward. Alex's company fired him. His friends vanished. His business partners dissolved their agreements. In 48 hours, he became a pariah. In the weeks that followed, a strange quiet settled over my life. Alex faced long legal proceedings, but everyone had already decided he was guilty. People ask if I'm triumphant if I got my revenge. It's not that simple. It's satisfying to know that they serve justice. Other families will see some restitution. I know I did the right thing. But there's no joy in it. There's no victory lap. To get that justice, I had to detonate a bomb in my own life and destroy my brother. I had to accept that the family I grew up with was a house of cards. Alex and I haven't spoken since that night. I don't imagine we ever will. In that quiet space he left behind, I found a different version of myself, stronger, colder, and far less naive. I learned that grief can spark change. Sometimes, to heal, you must cut out the rot, even if it means losing part of yourself. I sleep at night, but I don't dream of victory. I dream of the silence in that ballroom, the look on his face, and the long, lonely road I took to put it there. That was my story. It's about betrayal and the lines we cross when we're pushed too far. I've often wondered what someone else might have done. Would you have gone to the police, confronted him in a private setting, or would you have done what I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Sharing this has helped me heal. If my story speaks to you, please like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.